So my name is Siri Trejesen. It's a pleasure to meet all of you today. I'm a chaired professor at American University and also the Norwegian School of Economics. On a few of those editorial boards up there. And since Jeff handled the research, I wanted to handle the teaching. And I actually chose a book that Jeff is also a big fan of, Robert Boyce's Advice for New Faculty Members, since I'm talking about teaching. We only have 15 minutes, so we're going to go a little fast. But first, what are some great benefits of entrepreneurship teaching? We've got educated students who are the ones, starting and running the companies of tomorrow. We've got students with a more entrepreneurial mindset that they can apply in every single aspect of their life. If you are a great teacher, you'll have more time for research and everything else in your life, right? I mean, my day is broken up between a lot of research, teaching. I run a big center, run a lot of grants and gifts through, and I also have 3 small children and a husband. So there's a lot of competing interests, and if you nail teaching, you can have more time for everything else. You can give great content. You'll frankly probably be able to make better academic conference presentations because you can put the pieces together. You should be a clearer thinking. You should have some great inner satisfaction. Sometimes there are extrinsic rewards like recognition, best teaching award, various things, not only in your department but also in your school. And frankly, even here at the Academy, we have some awards for good pedagogy. And there's a halo effect sometime. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the halo effect from Phil Rosenzweig, but this came out of research in World War II where they were showing all these soldiers who were being evaluated high on everything. And they said, how can this be? And it was a halo effect. Because if someone was a great researcher, you might infer that they were also a great teacher, that they were also a great organizational citizen, that they were also, powering it out in the rest of your life. It's very hard to be a great researcher and a poor teacher because people, they have mindsets and heuristics about that. This book is fabulous. I'd recommend it to everyone. You're going to meet Howard Aldrich later. He's the one who first put me onto the book. These are the 8 principles for teaching, and we'll go through some of them as fast as possible. So the first is wait patiently and actively, begin early before you feel ready, prepare and teach in brief, regular bouts, stop before diminishing returns set in, moderate the negative thinking and the strong emotions, moderate the over-attachment to content, let others do some of the work, and moderate the classroom incivilities. So quite a few of us are big fans of Adam Smith in this room, especially this area over here. Adam Smith wrote a lot of great things. You may not have heard this quote, but he said the person who works so moderately as to be able to work constantly not only preserves his or her health the longest, but in the course of the year executes the greatest quality of work and quantity. And that's about not binge teaching. My first teaching experience, I taught at the London School of Economics. My class started at 9. I started preparing at 5 a.m., finished my slides by 8, walked to LSE, taught for 3 hours, then did the afternoon session. That was binge teaching at the age of, frankly, 30, 25, 28, I guess it was. That was probably not right and not too far. But here's some realities. There's too many novices who struggle with the seeming demands of classroom preparation. You're going to be asked, and I'm sure you're already asked already, to teach so many new sections, et cetera. There are too few really get the ready acceptance, the comprehension from students, the teaching evaluations that are, this high versus this high. A lot of people say, oh, well, in a year you'll improve a percentage point or a couple years. And if you make a poor start as a teacher, it's very hard to make that up. 3 to 5%, and this is from Boyce's research, are quick starters and they make exemplary starts. They have the lowest levels of classroom incivilities. They have very involved students. They have moderately paced lecturing. They spend a lot of time preparing for class, in the time that they allot, but not overall in the week, right? You could have someone who's an effective teacher who just prepares 3 to 5 hours a week, and you could have someone else who spends 25 hours, but this person could be a much better teacher. And they have some mild happiness, and certainly they moderate emotion. So I would turn this to you. I have a couple of questions, but what were some of your best teaching experiences as students? Anyone? Ben?
And I think, just going on field trips and meeting people on the street to, learn stats, learn, qualitative techniques.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes, maybe some moments there. What else? Anything else? Yes?
I think bringing in ideas and topics that you enjoy and making a discussion of that was a fun experience.
Yeah, because people can see that. These are great these are great things. How might you incorporate these positive experiences into your own teaching?
Well, being around Sharon, I guess I kind of take it for granted a little bit being here. I didn't realize she's a Yoda as much as I should.
Yeah.
But I'm not a teacher yet, so I guess I can't speak to being a teacher.
Okay. But you can pick up some of those things. You might even, if you have mentors, contact them for their teaching materials. Find them here. What were some of the worst experiences that you had as a student? Yes.
The whole like red line through the whole page, no explanation why.
Yeah, good. So you take those worst experiences and you think about how you could learn from others' failures, right? It's what entrepreneurs do all the time. You can do the same thing in your teaching. Even if we sit through horrendous presentations at the academy, of which I hope this isn't one, you can use that as a feedback mechanism for your own work. And when you enjoy teaching, to your point, your students are more likely to enjoy learning. So the first rule is you wait. This is really hard because most of us are type A's. We want to get a lot done. We want to get this teaching over with, and then we get onto our research. But active waiting is kind of thinking things in your head and working with them. And two of my favorite people did this. And I had the opportunity to interview both of these gentlemen in their lifetimes. Ronald Coase when he was 101 and a half and living in a nursing home in Chicago. And Vernon Smith. Both of these guys won Nobel laureates. You know them for their research in economics. But they are both freaking amazing faculty and teachers as well. But both of these gentlemen have in common that their best work was stuff that they prepared for the classroom. So Ronald Coase's theory firm, this was what he wrote in his lectures at University of Dundee, not far from where Ben is up in Scotland, and also when he was at the LSE. And Vernon Smith's experiments about how markets work were based on when he was teaching at like Purdue University, and he was trying to show people that there are markets and that we shouldn't try to manipulate the markets too much. So these are two examples of how people were trying to use teaching, and it ended up being Nobel laureate research. So you think about things. This is an example for me. Is I have this idea, well, I want the students to write their own exam questions. So it was around Easter time, although they call these the non-denominational exam eggs. And I had an Easter bunny costume because I have 3 small kids. So I went and bought the plastic eggs. I put candy and a slip of paper in it, and I passed it around the class, and everyone was excited to get the candy, but then they had to write a question, and then they passed it around. It took the 20 minutes of class time. Everyone got to write an exam question. Somebody scribed it, and people did so much better on the exam because they were thinking about the questions in advance. So this was an example of active waiting. Like I was just kind of driving to school. I used to run a lot. I used to think about that. So you pause before you're writing or you're talking. You use the pauses playfully. You put some of what you think are visualized into writing. So just some points about this. But let me also mention this. Since you're at the academy, all the great people that you're meeting here in this PDW and also at AOM are probably phenomenal teachers. Some of the best researchers are also some of the most phenomenal teachers, to Jeff's point as well. There's so much great stuff here. You can pick that up. You can go downstairs to the big, with all the displays and pick up stuff. You can get the winning case studies. You can talk to other faculty. You can be on listservs. You can get all this great material to digest while you're waiting. You try to optimize your interactions with students. I have bio sheets, so I know about them. I set office hours. I create a separate email folder for those since I'm getting bombarded with those, and I would much rather work on my R&Rs sometimes, but I don't want to see 50 student emails when right now I just want to focus on my co-author one, right? So I respond to emails really quickly. Most schools say you should respond in 24 hours. I create this bio sheet of, who are you? Why are you in this class? What are some fun facts? And then I get to know the students better and I can tailor things. When you're planning your next class, you have to think about what are the key messages you want to convey. The second piece is begin before you feel ready. You don't want to procrastinate. You don't want to be a perfectionist. You just have to start. So there's some exercises here around things that you could do to get going. I have another thing to optimize things is I have drop boxes of teaching materials. So this, for example, is my strategy, entrepreneurship, and IB class materials. And there's all kinds of really neat stuff in here. So it's not like I'm cramming all of a sudden and, okay, it's Tuesday, I start teaching on Monday, I better find an exercise. There are so many wonderful things out there. Carpenter's Strategy Toolbox. There's a couple of journals that just specialize in education. And even if you think, oh, I'm not really in decision sciences or business ethics, there are great exercises in there for entrepreneurship. There's the case winning awards, whatever the best HBS cases are. Whoever's winning the teaching awards, EIX.org is phenomenal, the Stanford Ed Corner. There's so many great resources out there that can optimize your teaching, and they're out there for a reason. So you prepare and present in brief, regular sessions. So you basically set this time aside for yourself, and you think of some concept that you could explain in 7 to 10 minutes, and then work on that for an allotted amount of time. These are some exercises for this, which probably be more apparent if you read the book as well. And you want to moderate your over-attachment and your under-attachment. It's very, very easy, frankly, to get over-attached to an article that's going back for the 3rd round in an A journal. So you monitor for over-attachment, you practice some early evaluations, you encourage criticism, and you take that criticism and you pivot. So for example, wherever you are, you get a copy of what the teaching evaluations are. So what are you actually being measured on? If you have evaluations, where are you behind? Which of these measures matters most to your university, to your tenure committee? So you want to moderate your negative thinking and your strong emotions. You want to make sure you replace any negative thinking with some constructive, optimistic thinking. Try to get rid of that negative thinking. I was talking to someone the other day, actually I was talking to a girl this morning for breakfast. She's got a 3rd round at ASQ. If it hits, she has tenure. If it doesn't, she's on the market, right? And she's already submitted it back. And I try to say, as we were leaving breakfast, when you walk out the door there, just don't think about this right now. Think about the conference. Think about all the interactions. Think about all the new things you can learn. But you've got to moderate that over-attachment to negative emotions. And the same thing with your teaching. You get some bad evals, you figure out what you can do from it, but you don't dwell on these. Immediately after class, think about what went well, think about what could be improved. You're not going to be able to just flip right into your R&R or flip right into rewriting your theory section after class if you're like me. I can't turn it on and turn it off like that. So you've got your notes in front of you, you write down what could be better, what couldn't be better. I keep my hard copies, but then I might also scan them in PDF so that the next time I teach. And sometimes if I have an hour between the next class, I might just change up the slides and save that as the new version and keep it so I don't have to do it later. Organize your notes and then put them away. Rule 7 is to let other people do some of the work. To find the best teachers, ask your department chair, ask your students, look on Rate My Professors. Find them at conferences because they won awards or they gave fabulous presentations. You can also watch a lot of YouTube videos. And finally, moderating classroom incivilities is increasingly a problem across the world. So you want to think about what incivilities you've seen and how can you moderate those. And they vary, of course, from campus to campus. You may want social contracts or at least set the tone, right? Is it okay to text the entire class time? Is it, whatever else it is? And some other pieces are share information about yourself in class that you feel comfortable so people can connect with you, and hopefully that you've got the bio sheets, you can connect with them. And let me give you, now that we're wrapping up here, some other sort of key pointers. Your students are really busy too, right? Your students have so much more to compete for their attention than we did. At American University, my students are typically working at least one paid job or internship alongside their studies because, the world is at our doorstep 2 miles down. I had a kid who, worked late at night at the hotels and showed up for class at 11 in the morning the next day. So you want to make sure that you give them everything as much as you can in advance. Highlight any unusual dates or events. Use the technology, whatever the technology is, the Blackboard. The very best faculty members don't just do a lot of things last minute, right? The students, you want to surprise them with something that, is really surprisable, but not anything else. Update it. I Skype in guest lectures, but I make sure the technology works. I do in-class polls, PowerPoint games, simulations. Certainly have modern PowerPoints. For us, an American, having the longer, elongated PowerPoint is like the first thing our students notice, for example. We do 10 takeaway slides, for example, so this is an exercise on blind spots and decision making and, using words like this to make sure that people have in mind, bad money after good, limited assumptions, limited frame of reference, invalid assumptions. Those are the blind spots. Whatever it takes, using multiple ways that people can remember things. Probably many of you are familiar with this book by Dale Carnegie. Do you remember one of the key lessons from it? It's about how knowing someone's name is one of the lessons, can really mean a lot to people, right? So this connection that you have, and of course it's hard because you've met about 30 new people today, but that can really be something incredibly meaningful for students, especially in small class sizes and at like mine, a small private university. So we do first day introductions, folks share where they're from, some fun facts. I try to get them to remember other people's names because that's a real life skill. For example, at Goldman Sachs, just for an internship, you might have 18 interviews. And then at the end of the day, sometimes our students have reported back that they're being at, someone will ask them and say, well, at the end of the day, so what's my name? You know, that's the last question rather than, you know, explain to me this equation again. Really important to create modular teaching models. Don't teach to the book unless you're pretty sure that's the book and you're going to be teaching that class for 6 years. You want to create modular models. So for example, when I'm teaching strategy, I have modular presentations about these rather than the book. In some cases, I use the book because I know that's going to be a class that I teach for 6 years, but modular materials are so valuable and you can update those so much easier. Some questions, you know, should you give the students PowerPoints in advance or after the class? I tend to do after the class, but in some classes, I will pre-print them. Do you want to do review sessions or office hours or both? What resources are available to help the really difficult students? You don't need to take that on. For example, counseling. And then a final piece I want to share with you is think about where's the best time in your day. When should you be focusing on research versus teaching? These are just some extremely creative and successful people and their working hours. So for example, we have Victor Hugo, who was sleeping from 12 to 6, then he did some food and leisure, then he did his creative work, and then he kind of chopped up the rest of the day. Whereas, you know, Voltaire woke up at 4 a.m. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of entrepreneurship faculty who wake up at 4 a.m. But you got to figure out when you're most productive for your research and for your teaching, and try to optimize that. For effective class emails, short, sufficient detail, you know, something positive and something relevant, bolder underlining the key points, attachments. Sometimes I would even send an Outlook invite to make sure that the students are switched on. Remind them about any key activities. Here's some other favorite solutions, and then we're done. Turn off the phone when you really need to focus, unless it's super important. Make sure you have a clear desk. This especially works for me. And then this is my lifeline. This is my recumbent bicycle with my piece. And in the morning, every morning, I'm on that bike for 1 or 2 hours answering emails while the kids are still sleeping. And then, you know, the kids get up, they get breakfast, they go to school, and then I go into school. But this really helps me because I'm kind of a fitness junkie, but I can't just take off and go to the gym. And plus, people will interrupt you in the gym, right? So from 5 to 7 a.m., that's my time that I can answer emails. I even sometimes take Skype calls. No one seems to notice, but the secret's out now. So that's it. Thanks for your time. If you have any final questions, there's my email and my cell phone.